Right. Hello, everyone. I am Judith Hope. I am a galactic channel. Specifically, I am a galactic Akashic channel because I work specifically with the Galactic Akashic Records to channel different extraterrestrial beings, to channel past life and Akashic information. And today we are going to be deep diving into what are the Akashic Records. So many of you may have heard of the Akashic Records, right? So typically the Akashic Records are associated with, past lives, right? This is something we always, see and hear about when we think about the Akashic Records, and that is a huge use of the Akashic Records, and that is one of the main things that I use the records for. However, it is not the only thing you can use the records for. So today we're going to be talking about that, as well as how you can receive information within the Akashic Records yourself. I also am going to have a separate video with a Akashic Records meditation that you're going to be able to ask a question to the Akashic Records. So we'll have that posted as well. But before we get into that, I want to give a little bit of my background. So you kind of know who I am. And of course, if you haven't done so already, you're enjoying this content and you'd like to see more of it, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe below. So with that being said, like I mentioned, I'm Judith Hope. I work primarily with the Galactic Akashic Records, and one thing that I really have a passion about doing, and I feel like is a big part of my life purpose, is helping starseeds remember who they are, right? So starseeds, these galactic souls, like you came here from other planets, maybe you were hanging out on Sirius or the Pleiades or Arcturus, and you decided like, hey, I'm gonna help Earth, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna be a human, but that means I'm gonna forget who I am, right? So you come here, you go under soul amnesia, and you have to remember who you are. Well, that's where I step in and I help the clients remember, like, hey, you were on Lyra doing this for multiple lifetimes, and then you went to Sirius and you were, on Sirius B being a mermaid for a while, and then you were involved in the Orion Wars and you were, a fighter pilot in the Orion Wars, things like that, right? So I help starseeds remember their entire history. I also do different types of work such as past life regression. I do different type of energy healing. I also just have like intuitive sessions. People want to come and ask me questions. So that's what I do now. Prior to that, I actually had a 10-year career in the finance world. I am a licensed CPA. That's what I went to college for. I was an auditor, both for public accounting firms and then internally in-house at different companies. And so that's kind of like my previous work history. But once I spiritually awakened, I just found that there was a different path for me. I like to think of it as a greater path, right? To do more and to help the collective in a certain way that my, soul had kind of designed for me to do. With that being said, I think that we all have that, right? That path, that passion, that journey. I'm not special in that way. I think that everyone's soul has designed certain, life missions and things that they're here to do on this planet. And that's why I'm passionate about helping people find those, right? So I also help my clients find those as well. So kind of a long introduction, but I did want to note who I am and what I am, why I'm even qualified to talk about this topic at all. Now, I also want to note I do have some freebies linked below. I have some sticker printables with all the different like cute aliens on them. And then I also have a third eye activation meditation linked below too. So if you haven't checked those out, completely free resources, please feel free to go and check those out now. So let's get into it. What are the Akashic Records? So the Akashic Records are basically a giant storage warehouse of information, right? And they're technically like an energetic archive, a quantum field that stores all of this information about everything, literally everything on this planet, everything in this galaxy, in this universe, right? Like that is what the Akashic Records are. And so you will see them described as like a library, right? A lot of times we'll see like a picture of a library when we see someone talking about the Akashic Records, or, nowadays it might be a giant database, right? That has all the information about everything in the universe in it. And typically, what the Akashic Records use for is to access information about past lives, because every single soul has all of their past life information in the Akashic Records. So every time they've been a human on Earth, every time they've been an animal on Earth, every time they've been a tree or a rock on Earth, that is all in the Akashic Records, as well as all of your lives as an extraterrestrial, which most humans on this planet, I do believe, have some type of life as an extraterrestrial on another planet. Now, we do see some Earth souls, some humans who have only been a human on Earth. That does exist, but for a large part, a lot of us here on this planet, especially starseeds, have had multiple lifetimes on other planets. So all of that information is housed in the Akashic records, and you'll sometimes also hear it referred to as the Akashic Field. It's like a giant quantum like field of like energy, right, that we're accessing and that we access through our third eye. Now, it's interesting because when we're in this dimension, in the third dimension, we're in a physical body, right? We're in a physical body. We have physical things. I have like my coffee cup, which is physical. I have my crystal, which is physical, right? And so the Akashic records in the third dimension are going to be more about a lifetime in the third dimension, are going to be more in a story format, right? And so that's true of the third dimension, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension. We start getting up into like the seventh dimension. Things become a lot less physical and a lot more etheric, right? Like slowly and slowly and slowly, when you're seventh, eighth, and ninth dimensions, like that's still a physical body form, but not, it just becomes less and less dense the higher you get, right? And eventually, when you get into these very high dimensions, the Akashic records are more going to be like vibration, thought, feeling. It's not going to be so much as like a story about a human or an alien, right? But when we're in this dimension, the third dimension, and we're in several dimensions above us, they will remain in that kind of storytelling type of form. I love talking about aliens, so that is kind of my specialty. I do want to talk about what aliens on other planets are like, right? Because some aliens on other planets are actually in a human or humanoid type of form. Now, humans on other planets do not look exactly the same as humans on this planet because our DNA on this planet is genetically engineered to be a mix of different types of humanoids and other aliens who are not humanoids of their genetics, right? So humans on other planets do, look a bit different, and they're like, a lot of them are taller, not all of them. Some of them are about the same height as us, but we are kind of a different breed of humans, perhaps is the best way to say it, on this planet. But then there are also aliens who look like every sci-fi character, under the sun, right? So like if you've seen Star Wars or Star Trek or Guardians of the Galaxy or Avatar, if you've seen those movies, like there are aliens and extraterrestrials like that on different planets. And so some of your past lives, you may have been a being who looked like one of these characters that you've seen in these movies that are just pretend, right? And then also you could have had past lives as like something like a fairy or a gnome or like a fae or like a giant, right? Because all of those creatures actually did exist on Earth at one point, right? Like in the Avalon period, but they also existed on other planets as well. And then also other types of lives that you may have had. You may have actually had angelic lives. There's a lot of angelic realms outside of this planet, right? Like the Andromedan galaxy can be very like angelic filling. But then there's also multiple angelic realms as well. You also could have been a co-creator being who actually helped to create like the human bodies on this planet or other planets. And then you were like, hey, like it's like playing a video game. You create a video game character, you spend all this time and energy like making this character, and then it's like, well, yeah, I want to play and I want to be the character. Like some of us humans are literally like characters created by our higher self, right? And all humans are souls designed, right? Like all humans are souls designed our current lifetime and our, everything about us, like who we wanted to be, who we wanted our parents to be, like who we wanted our like our best friend or our romantic partners to be, what kind of job or things are going to interest us in this lifetime. So that holds true for all human beings as well. We talked about how the Akashic Records has a lot of past life information in it, but it has a lot of information related to other things other than past lives. So we all have an Akashic Records of our soul, right? But actually other things have an Akashic Records as well. So like the house you live in, like there's an Akashic Records of that house, or the apartment you live in has its own Akashic Records, or the car you drive has its own Akashic Records. So that's when you're interested in like buying a house, or you're interested in buying a car, or you're trying to decide what apartment you're going to rent. You can actually open up the Akashic Records and get a feel for like the energy of the home or the energy of the car, or maybe what's happened during the manufacturing of the car or the building of the apartment or the previous tenant or owner of the home, right? You can kind of go into the Akashic records and see those things. And you can do this for smaller physical items too. Like if you want to buy a purse, or you want to buy a new wallet, you can go into the Akashic records and kind of look and see what's been going on with those items, whether they're new or they're used, right? And I'm really big into crafting. And so I went to Michael's one time. It was during the holiday season, like Michael's the craft store, and I bought this like little wooden house that basically like Michael sells these houses, and you like paint them and decorate them and put glitter and like little like tiny miniature things on this house. And it was just like a kind of a blank house. It was a Christmas, like little mini Christmas house. But I opened up the Akashic records of this house and I said, "How do you want me to decorate you?" And it said, "I want to be a gingerbread house," right? So then I literally like painted it brown and put brown glitter on it. And then I had these like little candies and I like made it into this little gingerbread house. But I literally, I asked the Akashic records, like, what does this house want to be? And that's a small thing, right? Like making a little, like craft during the holiday season, it's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of like a fun, hobby thing to do. But I was able to use the Akashic records for something like really small and kind of silly like that. You can also use the Akashic records for your business, right? So for a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, myself included, like when we have a business, we kind of think of it as like our baby, our creation. And that's very much true. Like this is something we're creating, and we're kind of like the tool through which this business will come into creation in the third dimensional like plane, right? But the way I look at it is that there's also the business has its own type of like energy, like it's like its own entity that like exists outside of you as well. And so using the Akashic records, you can actually go into the Akashic records of a business and you can kind of look at the plans for the business. Like what are the soul contracts that the business has? What are the things it's meant to achieve and do? Where does it feel like it wants to grow and expand more? Where does it feel stuck? Where does it need more attention? Right? And that's actually what I help my clients do in my Akashic business sessions is we go in and we look at the energetic structure of their business and we figure out like, hey, like this is where it wants to grow. Like this is actually not a block. This thing that you think is a block is actually going to help you. Like it's going to occur in divine timing. And so I think it's interesting to be able to go in and use the Akashic records of a business and kind of like give the business like a voice to speak kind of too, because it's like as a creator sometimes of the business we don't always think about it from that perspective. It's like, oh, this is my creation, but the business is also something that wants to come through you to be creative, to be created. And I feel like the more you work hand in hand with that, the more like divine like timing and flow you will have in the creation of your business. And honestly, the more like flow and like ease and like success almost that the business can have, right, when you're working with it hand in hand instead of kind of thinking of it as a separate thing that like you have to create. All right. So let's just talk about how we receive messages from the Akashic records, right? And for the most part right now, it's kind of using your third eye, right, to access the Akashic records and to receive messages, as you would doing mediumship or doing any type of channeling. Right. And I will say that, if you do want to become an Akashic Records practitioner, or even just working with the Akashic Records, I really recommend taking courses of how to access, open, and use the Akashic Records. That's what I did. I actually took two of them. I took a basic one, just how to use the records, and then I took one that was really specialized and focused in the Galactic Akashic Records. The Akashic Records are something that there's a lot of administration and record keeping around it. They're heavily guarded. Not everyone is able to access the Akashic records. There have been times I work professionally as a Akashic Records practitioner. There have been times where I have not been allowed to access the records, right? Part of it, right, is your intention. What is your intention in accessing the records, right? Like, do you have a good intention or a bad intention? When I've been on a substance where maybe I wasn't in the best like mindset, I have been like, hey, like while this substance is in your system, you cannot open the Akashic records. When I have asked questions that were not for the highest good of myself or the other person that was there also wanting to know the answer to the question, I've been told like, no, we will not provide you the answer to that question, right? So it's a very like serious matter. So that's why I always say like, hey, like if you're able to financially afford it, like, you know, definitely go take an Akashic Records course, like learn the, you know, protocols that are used to open the records in a respectful and responsible manner. And if you're not able to afford to take a course, because I understand that there, you know, there are people who just may not be in that financial position, and that's absolutely okay. There are free resources out there as well to learn how to access the records. So definitely just put out the intention to find those, and you should be able to access, to find those courses that can help you learn how to access the records without having to pay a lot of money up front. I think you can find those as well. Now, with that being said, you know, typically you would use your clairsenses to access the Akashic records. So we'll just kind of go through those kind of briefly. But you know, we talk about clairsenses, and the one that for some reason I don't know why it always feels like it's the most popular one that people want to talk about is clairvoyance. Right, so that's seeing things in your mind's eye, a mental picture. For some people, that can be very detailed, like crazy detailed, like big scenes and things like that. Like I have a very strong clairvoyance where I could do that. Some people, it's going to just be like more colors, imagery, right? Maybe you'll see a sacred geometry symbol, or you'll just see a square, right? It just kind of depends on like how your particular clairs work. Almost everyone has like a strongest clair when they first start out. I think the more work you do on your third eye, the more you open that, you'll open up your other clairs. I think eventually most people can gain access to multiple clairs. That's how it works for me, at least. I could, if at first I really had strong clairvoyance and just had really low level other clairs. And the more I've activated, worked on my third eye, I mean, I've been working on my channeling skills for like 3 years now. And the more I've done that, the more my other clairsenses have come online. So the next one we're going to talk about is clairaudience. So clairaudience, that's hearing, right? So it's also called clairaudio sometimes. But sometimes it could just be like sounds, right? It's like you hear like a shh sound or something like that. And sometimes if you ask what somebody's name is, and maybe their name is like Shirley or something like that on the other side, like you're talking to like a spirit guide or a person who's passed on, they'll be like shh, and you kind of like, oh, Shirley, you might know it's Shirley. Then after that, right? Sometimes it can also be things like you hear a word, like you hear a voice, or you hear a song. Like every time I go into the Akashic Records in a past life reading, and we're going to the Orion star system, I'll always hear the Star Wars theme song. It's like that one they play at the beginning where the words are coming up the screen, and it's kind of like that main theme. If I hear that, I'm like, okay, I know we're in Orion, the Orion Wars. Star Wars, what we see in the Star Wars movie is very, very similar to what we see in what happened in the Orion Wars. So like, hey, I know we're in Orion. Like that theme song, getting that, it's like, okay, I know, right? So that's my clairaudience coming in. And then also, I think too, the more you do develop your clairaudience, you are able to like actually have like guides and extraterrestrials speaking like full sentences as well, right? But, and some people have that come on immediately. Some people that may be a little bit more advanced. For me, that was when I had to more develop. Now let's talk about clairsentience. So clairsentience is more of like a feeling in your body, right? So you may feel like this will be like the physical reactions, like when you walk in a room and you're like, something's amiss here, something's not right. You feel goosebumps. Like that's a type of clairsentience. It might also be when you open the Akashic Records, you might feel like a past life is really sad or grief because of something they've lost, like feeling that grief or that sadness. That's an example of clairsentience. Or feeling joy, feeling like enthusiasm or joy, right? Like that would also be an example of clairsentience. It might also be you open up the Akashic Records and suddenly you're like, I feel like I'm in outer space. I know I'm here. Like that is an example of like clairsentience, the feeling part of it. The knowing is more the claircognizance, which we're going to get to next. Or like maybe like I know I can feel I'm on the beach. I can feel the wind whipping at my hair and the sun on my face, right? That feeling is clairsentience. And so like I'll say with me, like clairsentience is very low for me. Like I barely have any when I'm doing readings for people. I will like sometimes like when I am feeling like dark or bad energy, like I will be able to feel that in my body and I'll be able to sense that. But like when I'm doing a reading for someone, I almost never have like high amounts of clairsentience. And I do this professionally, right? So it's like, you know, some of these, it's like you may have really high of one clairsense and really low of another. It's not bad or worse to have it. It's just how like your unique clairsenses work. Like so many readers and professionals have different like clear abilities, and it's just like what you've worked on in your past life. Like I had a lifetime on Sirius where I just really worked on my clairvoyance, and so now my clairvoyance in this lifetime came on like that, but it's because of the work my soul did in another life, and maybe my soul hasn't done that in relation to clairsentience, so that's why it is a bit lower, you know, in this lifetime. So just keep that into account when you are working on your clairs. Now for claircognizance, that's just that internal knowing, like, and I think we all kind of have that. It's that gut feeling that's really kind of described as like intuition, right? It's like that claircognizance of just knowing something. Like I just know this is a bad situation, or that I shouldn't do this. Or you just, maybe you meet someone new and you just automatically know information about them, right? That is your knowing, right? And I think the more you develop this too, sometimes you'll just open the records, you'll just know all this information. Like I just know A, B, and C, right? And like for me, the more that I developed my abilities, I was able to like start speaking as a guide. I just know what the guide wants to say. It's literally like I just open up that channel and the guide is like, I'm just knowing it through my claircognizance, right? And I think the thing with claircognizance that can be difficult is that sometimes you wonder like, do I really just know this, or is my brain inventing something? It's that kind of distrust that I think a lot of people have initially when they're starting to use their claircognizance, myself included. But I think the more you practice it and learn it, you start to recognize like, no, this is my claircognizance, and you start to trust it more. So, all right, with that being said, all of that information, that was the intro to the Akashic Records with a little bit more added information that I don't think is super 101 or introductory. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I'm going to have another meditation video where we're actually going to go into a meditation in the Akashic Records. I'm going to put the link for that one below this one. So if you watch this, you've gotten the information, you're like, okay, I have a past life question, like, I want to know, like, you know, why do I have this fear of my house burning down or getting in a car wreck? Or I want to know, why am I so obsessed with like K-pop music and Sailor Moon, and like I can only watch Korean TV, but I've never been to South Korea. I don't know anyone from there. I'm in this other country on the other side of the world. Like, why do I love this culture so much? Like, do I have past lifetimes there? Like, those are the type of questions you can ask. You can also just ask like, hey, like, what is my galactic origins? Have I been an alien before? Like, show me an alien I've been before. I want to go into my body and I want to see like, oh my gosh, my hands are all of a sudden they're pink, or they're blue, or they're not hands, they're paws now. You know, if you want to ask those types of questions, that's really good to ask in the meditation as well. So I will link that below. I also have a link to all my different sessions. So if you've learned something from this, you do want to work with me one-on-one. If you want to know your galactic origins, where you came from, why you came to this planet, your life purpose, why you are human at this time, I highly recommend my soul origin and life purpose reading. I also do past life regression, energy work. If you're struggling with financial stuff, you want to attune yourself to the highest frequency of money, I have a financial abundance attunement. So I have so many different ways you can work with me. If you're interested in doing that, I will have my Calendly linked below as well. I would love to work with you one-on-one, so please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any questions about my sessions. I also have different groups, I facilitate different events, and so I'll link that below as well. But thank you guys so much. I hope you learned everything, and please, if you do have time, check out that Akashic Records meditation linked below. All right, bye.